Talking About Horses, bringing you closer to some of the best horsemen in the world for tips, insights, and stories. Listen at home, at work, in the car, or in the saddle. This is Talking About Horses. Here's your host, Patrick King.
Hey there, gang. Patrick King here, and I want to thank you for tuning in for episode number 31 of Talking About Horses. Today, I'm pleased to be joined by equine professional and award-winning author Anna Blake. Anna, thank you so much for joining us here on Talking About Horses.
Hi, it's good to be here.
Oh, goodness. Thank you. So, Anna, for those of you that, or for those folks out there that are listening that don't know you, can you give us a brief bio? Who is Anna Blake?
I always introduce myself first and foremost as a horse advocate because I think our job is to put the horse first. And I started in horses like a lot of us did. My first babysitter was a horse. And I am a gray-haired woman. You may refer to me as a gray mare of a certain age. And if you meet a woman of my age who comes from the West Coast, you should assume, of course, that I started in a Western saddle. Yeah, kind of like you. And I found out about dressage, and everything about it appealed to me. I feel like it's just a great discipline for horses. And I have been training for almost 20 years, so I'm kind of a late bloomer. But that's pretty much who I am.
Fantastic. So you said that you started Western and then dressage appealed to you. What was it? How was your introduction to dressage?
Well, again, back in those days, I live in Colorado, and it was not a booming event back in those days, but I was a reiner, and that was before we did freestyles in reining, and my background is as an artist, and so I really love the creative aspect of freestyles. I saw dressage freestyles, and I recognized this form that was not unlike a martial art, meaning you would begin at one level and go up the levels, and I really wanted that notion of a path that would take me somewhere farther than what I'd had before. In all of my riding disciplines, I kept looking for things that involved, to my mind at least, involved more of relationship with the horse rather than... now I'm going to say something bad, and I've been doing really well up until now. I flunked out of Western pleasure. I'm just going to blurt it out.
Yep.
I flunked out.
Yep.
I
think you and I are probably on the same page there.
Everything about dressage was really appealing to me, and I understand. I am not blind to the current culture. I understand that there are some things going on today that are not what the writers of the dressage classics had in mind.
Yes.
And that's fine with me. I am choosing to not hand my discipline over to them, and I'm sticking with it the way it was written and the way it's been taught.
That is so very well put. I really like the way you said that.
Well, I defend dressage a lot.
Yeah.
I've had experience, and if you, I expect you have as well.
Yes, absolutely, and I don't know, that really resonated with me just there. I really like the way that you said that. I really like that. Great. Okay. So let's get a little bit deeper, if you don't mind. So you said you have a background as an artist. Can you tell me more about that?
I was a self-employed artist for 35 years. I had no goal of becoming a trainer. I was actually, I was that hyper-obsessed amateur that rode, exactly. I clinicked with everybody. I trained full time with, trainers. I just loved my work, and I loved horses, and so I was actually a goldsmith, which is, I think you're going to say, not unlike being a farrier, except, we just share anvils. That's about all we share.
There you go, right?
I did one-of-a-kind work that showed in galleries across the country, and it put me in a position where I could board 2 horses and ride all the time and set my own hours at each. So it was a wonderful, it's a great life. I've had a great work life.
That's awesome. Yeah, that would give you a lot of freedom to pursue the riding that you wanted to.
Yeah, and, don't ever feel sorry for me for any reason at all. My gallery opened at 11, and I left home at 6 in the morning. And I have to tell you, I haven't had such consistent riding since moving to the farm, not once.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
I moved to the country, put my breeches on, and walked out to the barn and fixed fence for 2 hours, and then came back into the house.
Right? Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was a choice,
Yes. It's so funny because I give advice, and it almost seems counter to what the average horse owner or horse lover would think, but I give advice all the time to my students that are boarding. They talk about building a barn at home, and it would be so much nicer to have my horses at home. And I say, gosh, why would you want to do that? You'll have no time to ride if you take them home. But it's a different way of life, though, having them home, for sure.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. And, for me, it was, I had that experience where everything in my life conspired for me to take a jump to something I didn't know. And so that's what I did when I moved to the country.
Yeah, okay. That's great. So let's see. So a goldsmith, you've got your artist background, and you're also an award-winning author. And I see you have several books that you've written, and you have quite a blog going on there. You also list, and I love this, on your website, it says that you write parables about horses and life.
Well, it seems like they're the exact same thing.
Aren't they?
It seems to me that, horses have taught me more about getting along with horses and people and dogs than I've learned anywhere else. A few years ago, a book came out, some title like, I learned everything I needed to know about life in kindergarten.
Yes.
And then there were kind of a plague of books like that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that about the barn. It's where I've made my best friendships with horses and with people. It's where, the biggest feeling of connection and, all of the positive things in my life have all happened in the barn. And so, for me, they're kind of the same thing. Some people, I have readers on my blog who tell me that they don't have horses, and my blog gets shared in dog communities sometimes. And sometimes people tell me they use my advice with their kids. I don't have kids, so I won't comment on that. but I think, Patrick, I'm going to put you on the spot. I think Ray Hunt used to talk about this.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What did he say?
Oh my goodness! It was so much about he would talk so much about a lifetime. He would say it takes a lifetime to learn how to live a lifetime. And he would always relate that back to the horses and how everything that we offer to the horses, we have to look first within ourselves to check for congruency and to see the way that we present ourselves to the horse, if that's a way that's fitting to the horse. So it very much like exactly what you're saying. It's that parable, horses and life, and he definitely helped me to think more about how I present myself not only to the horse, but also to the person. Am I saying something that they are able to comprehend, and am I saying it in a way that they can best comprehend it? You know, there was so much of that that went through there. Yeah, and it is, you know, it's like you said, it's with dogs, it's with kids, certainly with kids. I have a daughter. She just turned 8 years old, and I used to joke that I was going to write the book on round pen parenting. But the truth is, at this point, I think I'm the parent that's been stuck in the round pen. You know, she's learning how to work me over pretty well. But it's interesting because I find that she has even learned at her age.
She's learning how to work me over.
Oh, it sounds like you've got the volume on there.
It just came up on my screen. I'm back again.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, there's a couple second delay in that video. But yeah, she's kind of learned how to put herself across there, I've found, in a way that that helps it to work. Kind of like Ray was always trying to get us to do with the horses, you know. Little things like, you know, Dad, I don't need any new toys, but do you think we could go and see what they might have? Just in case somebody else is interested? I'm like, oh man, she's got me figured out, you know?
I am sorry to say this so early on in the conversation, but you know mares, they're just smarter.
Well, there is that. There is that.
They just are.
I will give her that for sure. I will give her that. Oh, goodness. That's awesome. So what I noticed from the list is that you've got 4 published books. Is that correct?
Yeah, one is just now in the process of coming out.
Ah, okay.
So here's what's great about writing. I've always written a little bit, not much. But I had a book I wanted to write that I've wanted to write since I was little. And I didn't think I was a good enough writer to write my book. So what I decided to do was to start a blog because, well, you know, I'm an introvert. And so I didn't want to join a writer's group. I thought I would make friends with readers instead of writers. And I start this blog and I give myself writing assignments every week. This week I'm going to describe something hard to describe, or this week I'm going to write something meant to be humorous. You know, I would give myself writing assignments. So what's great about this from the standpoint of being a trainer is, I always believe when I listen to trainers, when I go to clinics, I'm always hoping to hear a different set of words so that my understanding will shift a little. I don't think that there's a whole lot of brand new information out there, but sometimes just hearing things a little bit differently will shift everything.
Certainly.
So writing, it would happen in a journal if I had journaled it. Journaling's good for figuring out your thoughts. So there I was writing. And, to be clear, for the first 2 years, I think maybe 22 people followed my blog. And I could tell if somebody skipped reading, and nobody commented. And I stuck to it with that same commitment I take to writing, because writing and riding are very similar pastimes. And the thing that's been so great now, 8 years in, posting twice a week and meeting all my deadlines, is I think I have deepened my understanding of what I teach, as weird as that sounds. But, I think that that's what Ray Hunt was saying in a different sort of context, but he was saying, it takes a lifetime to figure this out. Yes. For me, the activity of writing about it has been really good. And so, Patrick, I bet you read a lot of articles.
I do, yes.
And I bet some of them are just stupefyingly dull.
I will admit.
Yeah, I read those articles too.
Mm-hmm.
And, I read those reports that come out of college, vet colleges and stuff like that. And I read them because I'm a trainer and it's my job to be educated and to stay up to date.
Yes.
And there is so much writing out there that is hard to be interested in reading, that this commitment to find a way to say things that would hold someone's attention became really important to me. Because I have the same aversion training you do. I read things that are very important to read and understand, but they're just dull.
Yeah.
And so, I live on a little farm out on the prairie, and it's very quiet here, and so I took up writing, and it's just the smartest thing I ever did.
That's fantastic. And now with this mindset about writing, did I see correctly that you actually teach a clinic? Most of us, when we're in horses and we think about clinics, we're thinking about horsemanship clinics, but you also teach a clinic of sorts for writers?
I'm going to just take a moment out here to explain my business plan to you.
Okay.
Because, I'm all about business. This is my business plan. I say yes. That's it.
That's a good plan.
And it's working really well for me. And so somebody asked me to, and then somebody else asked me to. And so far, 3 clinics have said, would you consider doing this? And so we do it either right before the clinic or right after the clinic. And the people who come to the writing workshop, sometimes they're riders and sometimes they're not. Sometimes they don't have horses in their lives. And sometimes it's a professional who would like to write more effectively. Sometimes it's storytelling. Sometimes it's memoir. I think it's really important that our voices are heard. And the thing I have to say is the people who come are really wonderful, and we end up having, it's like a clinic. We end up coming away really inspired and really excited about what we're doing. And it's been really fun for me.
That's fantastic. Those are the best ones, aren't they? Where it's just as much fun for you as it is for the participants.
I don't know how long you've been traveling, but I've been really fortunate. These last 2 years I've traveled a lot. And it's great because you get to meet so many more horses, and your understanding as a trainer deepens. You get to meet so many fascinating people. And, I remember a long time ago, it dawned on me, long before I was a professional, it dawned on me that I thought some horse trainers really got along with people better than horses. Some got along with horses better than people. And as time went on, I decided, the people thing was going to be hard, but I'd work on it. Horses were easy. And I have to say, the people I meet, I fall in love with. And, I think about them when I'm gone. At the end of I start the clinic, I wrote it this way. I always feel like the new kid in school at the first day of a clinic. And, comes time to leave, and I'm really sad.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
It's a great experience to get to travel and meet horses and their riders and see how people do it in other places.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and it's interesting, and I'm kind of glad that you brought that up, the idea about some people are better with horses and some people are better with the humans. But, whether it's horses or humans, I find they're all individuals on their own path, and it's our job as an educator to reach those individuals, regardless of the body they happen to be in.
So true.
Yeah.
Perfectly stated. I think at a certain point in my life I drew sides, maybe, not in a black and white way, but, I think I agree with you. The more I'm around people and horses, everybody is an individual, and the relationships that the two of them have are very individual relationships.
Yes.
It's one of the things that's so, fascinating about this work that you and I do. It's, the thing I love the most about it is that it's almost like an adrenaline sport, that you go someplace you don't know, and every hour of the day you meet somebody, 2 people, one in a horse suit, who are brand new to you. And, I love the challenge of getting to do that. It really energizes me, and I'm really fascinated by it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the energizing thing, I think, is really neat, too. I find it could be a full day of teaching. Well, I'll take yesterday, for example, for me. I started teaching and working at 9 a.m. and I finished with a lecture at about 9:30 p.m. and I went solid through the whole day. And boy, if we would have had more lessons, or we would have had another hour's worth of questions, I would have been just as excited to be there through the end of that. And I didn't have a whole lot of coffee.
That's our job.
Yeah, absolutely.
And and if you don't feel that way, get out of the job.
Yeah.
But it's inspiring to me. It's really it's all I like to do.
Yeah. That's fantastic. And that's, people ask me, why do you do this? I say, gosh, because I couldn't see myself really doing much else.
Well, that and just being ridiculously lucky, I think that adds in too.
Yeah, and I think there's a little pinch of stubbornness too, maybe sometimes.
Well, yeah. My first horse as an adult after I left home was an Appaloosa. And, of course, I heard all of the Appaloosa jokes.
Yes.
Yeah. And I used to just take a little smile to my face and say, careful, takes one to ride one. and that's what I think. I think you have to be, a little bit Appaloosa to survive in this world. A little bit of, in this training world, I think having a little donkey in you isn't a bad thing. A little Arabian for that last burst of energy at night, that's a good idea.
Yes. I love it. I love that you brought up donkey, because I also noticed on your website you mention Edgar Rice Burroughs as a moral compass.
Well, he is. He is. He's better than all of us.
I tell everybody, and people might actually get sick of hearing me mush over them and gush over them, but I absolutely love donkeys and mules, and so when I saw Edgar Rice Burroughs, I knew we were going to be friends, Anna. I knew it as soon as I read that.
Well, and just this week I was trying to round up some photographs that I had to send off for PR for something, and so I'm looking for shots of me that I wouldn't mind having the world see, and I just love having my picture taken. That's an affirmation, by the way. And I found this great photograph of Edgar and I doing horse agility, doing a teeter-totter.
Oh,
and
nice.
I thought, nah, you probably shouldn't send that one off. And I tell my friend, dressage training friends, if you really believe that you're a positive trainer, if you really think you've got that going for you, do a donkey. Train them to do anything.
Yep.
Because, that's the separator between the positive training, no, I mean it positive, or I have to go sit in the house and wait for a while now. And, you shouldn't use a vet that can't work with a donkey, and you shouldn't use a farrier that doesn't have a donkey skill in him.
Right.
Edgar has a great sense of humor, but the reason he's our moral compass, I've worked a lot with rescue horses over the years. Okay. I've always been, on the list with a couple of local rescues here. And when a horse comes here, they're usually not at their best, if for no other reason than they, just had a trailer ride, and usually more. Mm-hmm. And I don't put them in with my herd, and I don't want to isolate them. So Edgar goes in with the visitor. And no matter how much the new horse pushes him away, he doesn't get mad and he doesn't kick back. and he'll share his food, and he will be relentlessly pleasant. And so, yeah, he's my moral compass.
That's fantastic. Everyone needs an Edgar.
God, it's just true. It's just true.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So you teach clinics. I saw on your website you have several different clinics listed, and you also have an interesting thing listed there that you call concept clinics. Can you tell me about that?
I would like to say that it's just this genius idea that I came up with. Yeah, you're right to giggle there. Sometimes the way it goes in a lesson or in a clinic is that we start with one point, and then we wander and we wander and we wander. And then it's like we get a little bit, a snippet of information about a few different things. And my fantasy was that what I would do is a clinic that was all about one thing, and so I would just return to that topic again and again. So it would be like a spotlight on one thing, but as we go through the day and we work with individual humans and individual horses, we get different perceptions of that. And frankly, it's kind of a thing that we used to do in the art world back in the 80s and 90s, where we would explore something fully, some concept fully, in a piece of art or in a series of artwork. And so that's what I decided to do. With my usual flair for good business practice, I just scribbled something down on my blog. I hadn't updated my clinic web page for years, and I've always given clinics, sometimes 3 a year. And so I write this draft about concept clinics, and I don't do the spell check, and I just hit draft and go to bed. I think you know what happened.
Uh-oh. That wasn't the draft button you hit, huh?
No. And I woke up in the morning with emails that said, "Oh, this sounds great." And so I went ahead and did the spell check and, put a photograph in, and it acted like I meant to do it all along.
Roll with it.
I'm trying to act like it was my plan. I'm just trying to say, yes, I did that. Yes, it's a genius idea. Yes. And they've been really fun to do. Really fun.
So how do they work?
To explain it in the context that you and I probably understand, and I would hope the people listening would understand, is, you would go to a clinic maybe, and the first rider was an intro-level rider, and her walk-trot transitions were where you'd be. And then the second rider might be a fourth-level rider, and the third, and then, it's funny, I hadn't connected this until right now. One of my early clinics was with Sandy Pfluger years and years and years ago. And I was about the first ride of the day, and there were a bunch of upper-level riders coming, and I was a baby. And I got out there, and she started us walking, and it was great. It was a great lesson. And I looked at my watch 20 minutes in, and I was still walking. And time went on, and I was still walking. 45 minutes in, still walking. It's the best walk of my entire riding career, but I felt like quite a loser.
Yeah.
How pathetic I must be.
Right.
She would not let me out of the walk. And at the end of the hour, I climbed down and hung my head, and she asked me if my horse was for sale, but I knew she didn't mean it. She just felt sorry for me, so I didn't even answer her. I stumbled, put my horse up, watered him, give him hay, and I thought, I'll come back in and watch what the real riders get to do. And nobody got out of the walk that day.
Yep.
Nobody.
Yep.
And in hindsight, I guess it was a concept clinic. I guess she had something, she didn't advertise it that way, and I don't know how many people would have come if they'd known they weren't going to get out of the walk.
Yeah.
But it was a concept clinic that she had a bit of information she wanted to impart in such a clear way. And that's the way I feel about these clinics, is I just want to do this one thing really well so that everybody understands it on a bunch of different levels in a bunch of different scenarios.
Okay. Wow. So there's still riders are still coming out and bringing their horses
Absolutely.
to them. Okay. Very interesting.
Absolutely. And so, if the clinic, one of them is called Dressage Rhymes with Massage.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless of what breed you ride or your level of riding skill, if you're going to ride in the arena, the horse has to feel good.
Yes.
And the warm-up is really crucial for that. I want my horses to pull to go to the arena. I want them so happy in the arena because everything good happens there. And so some of that has to do with a warm-up that encourages the horse to physically feel good, but also mentally be engaged. And so that's a great example of something I can do with any rider and any horse at the level they're at, whatever breed they are.
Gotcha. Okay.
And the lesson would look different all day long.
Sure.
Depending on the individuals. So that's what it's like.
Interesting. Okay. So you have Dressage Rhymes with Massage, and I noticed also you have one called Holding Hands with Horses. How does that one work?
Well, boy. Well, that one has to do with contact.
That's kind of what I thought. I like that.
Yeah, and I got to say, is there anything harder to teach than that? Do you know of anything harder to teach than contact?
Astrophysics might be a little more difficult, but I don't know. I've not learned that one to even try to teach it myself. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I might have more problem with any math class, but with horses, I think the ideal understanding of contact is really challenging.
Yes. And
that's why we have so many opinions about riders and their hands, is because it's really hard to learn.
Yes.
And so this is a clinic where we do some exercises with each other and other exercises with the horse, and just really try and proceed into the idea of contact a little more creatively. And so we always use this term. We say riding is an art.
Yes.
Well, it's literally. I take that very literally. It's what I've done my whole life. When I closed down my gallery and went full-time to training, I told my clients that I had changed media because I find working with horses to be by far the most creative thing I've done in my life. And contact is one of those things that I just think involves a whole lot more than take a death grip on the reins and kick hard. And, it is a dance of finesse. And so that clinic is about that. And it's about perceiving it in a different way. But it's also some physical exercises that give us a better understanding of what it feels like to the horse. And, if there is a fundamental aspect to everything I teach, it's that we have to see it from their side.
Yes, absolutely. So how would you define connection?
Well, first of all, it has to be totally rhythmic. Everything good that happens for a horse happens rhythmically. Chewing, grazing, walking. Everything bad that happens for a horse happens with a break of rhythm, bucking, bolting, spooking. So my hands must maintain rhythm with the movement of my horse. Other than that, it's really easy.
Sure. Oh, yeah, that's all. And then it's easy.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's so complicated about it.
Yeah.
And we have a tendency, some of us punish with the reins consciously. Some of us punish with the reins unconsciously. Here's the dilemma with contact, in my opinion. Horses, they're flight animals. You think now I'm going to say that humans are predators, but it's even worse than that, weirder than that.
Okay.
We're primates.
Yeah.
We swing by our hands.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we do with our hands. When babies are born, we stick our little finger out and ask them to grab it. We have been grabbing, pulling, and holding things it's innate. It is our instinct.
Absolutely. And we're tool-using primates, no less, so we use other things to get the job done.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, truthfully, we're a bad match with horses. It's just that we're not giving them up, and I don't think they're giving us up either.
Right.
And so, we have to figure out how to get past our own instinct. And that's the tricky part. We always want horses to lay down their instinct for us, but we're not particularly interested in laying down our instinct for them. I think it's like a Zen journey to learn good contact.
So absolutely well put. The idea of us laying down our instinct is so true, because we have our natural tendencies for going fetal and gripping and grasping, and that Zen journey, that I think sums up horsemanship, doesn't it, right there?
Yeah. Well, and that's why it's an art. If all that mattered was a technique, well, that would be a different thing entirely. Techniques. I was going to say were easy to learn like math, but again, something that's evaded me, so it's a bad example. I think it is innate within us to want to control our environment.
Yes.
And, you just never get to control a horse. You just don't. Right,
exactly. I find we're all, of course I joke about this, but I say that all riders are that type A personality, because we're trying to control that whole situation. And the fact is, we're trying to control another living being's entire existence, which I think kind of makes us type A squared.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And most of us are also introverts, so we're type A introverts, which means that we stew about it a lot.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, I have come to this way of training in a way that was about the last thing I expected. I got into dressage and I started to see the upper level movements. And, I did not own dressage horses. I owned backyard horses. And I had a dream and I really wanted to ride up the levels, and I was very ambitious about it. I just wanted it so badly. Think type A. And it was great. It was wonderful. I just had to change everything about myself.
Yep.
How you get to upper level is you change everything about yourself.
Right.
So in how I came to train with the positive methods I use was through blind ambition that went wrong. I got hung up. Hung up, and you get to that place where I'll just do anything to get it right.
Yes.
And doing anything meant I had to change.
Right.
I had to teach myself to act like I didn't care. I had to teach myself to laugh out loud. And this one's a huge one with me because, horses can't learn if they are stuck in their flight or fight mode,
Absolutely.
and I can't learn anything if I'm tense and stressed out.
Right.
I certainly can't teach someone, horse or human, in that state. And horses like us when we laugh. So, step A should be to learn to laugh when you're on your horse.
Yeah, I like that. Breathing is optional, but laughing should be a must.
Well, laughter is a way of breathing. I want to think of it that way.
Yes, certainly. Yeah. Well, I think it would get us to breathe in maybe even a more meaningful way,
Yeah. Well, for humans, laughter is a huge release. For us, it changes our nervous system. It's a shift in our nervous system.
Yes.
And, I don't care how the shift begins. I just care that we get to a place where we're kind of unstuck and open and, not having any more stress than we absolutely need to have.
Yes, the fact that it happens is the important part. How we get there is a little less important.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think if horses had a choice, laughing is what they'd want from us.
Mm-hmm.
I think they seem to like it.
That's very
I think they
interesting.
have a pretty good sense of humor themselves, but again, if you're not laughing, you wouldn't recognize their behavior as a sense of humor.
Right. Yes. This is so true. Yeah. That's interesting. So we kind of touched a little bit there on what we could refer to as the sympathetic state of the nervous system there with horses and with people. And that's going to actually take me to my next point here and something I'm super interested in chatting with you about. And that's your concept clinic about the calming signals. Can you tell me about those?
I almost said it a minute ago and I choked it back. Laughing is a calming signal.
Yes.
That a human gives when we are telling people, to relax, that we don't mean them any harm, that, a calming signal. It's a phrase. Are you familiar where the phrase came from?
No, I'm not at all, actually.
Well, it was coined in 2005, I think, by a woman who's a dog trainer, a Norwegian dog trainer whose name is Tura Drugas. And she wrote a book entitled On Talking Terms with Dogs, Calming Signals. Oh. And she gave that term to body language that dogs have as a way of communicating with each other. And it's a puny little book with a whole lot of photographs in it. I really recommend it. And
it sounds right up my alley. Puny little book with lots of pictures.
Well, again, I'm fussy about what I read. I thought I could get through it. But it came not long after I moved out here to the farm, and everything kind of came apart. And I also had a rescue dog at that point, and so I got this book in hopes of helping the dog. But as I read it, I really felt like it was everything my dogs and horses were doing were the same. So I move out here, and I'm all alone, and got 2 horses and 2 dogs, and I don't know anybody. So I do what any reasonable person would do. I got some llamas and goats. And what I noticed was they were all having a conversation that I was not involved in. And theoretically, these are upper-level horses. Judges tell me that I ride happy horses. I think things are just great, but I'm left out of the conversation. And I wrote a blog about it because that's what I do. I write blogs about things. And I gave her credit for it. But I really connected with what she had to say in this book. And as I started to relate to the horses in those terms, everything changed in a way that shocked me, especially at that point in my horse life. And so I wrote this blog, and it went viral, and I was really flattered because back in those days, I had fewer readers than I do now. And a week after the blog came out, I got an email from Turid Rugas, and I was nervous when I got it. I thought, oh, gee, I hope, did I screw this up?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't screw it up. She said, thank you so much. I was hoping people would relate this to horses. She said that she grew up on a horse farm. She trained dogs now. A student of hers published a book last summer that relates it to horses, and I don't have that title in front of me, but I'd be happy to post it on your website later.
That'd be fantastic.
It's a great book about calming signals in horses.
Okay.
It's a bigger book, but there are still lots of pictures. And the reason the pictures matter is because this is a visual language. It's not an auditory language. And it just became so much a part of how I relate to animals this last 20 years of living on the farm and training this way. And it changed everything. So a calming signal, just to be clear, is a signal that a horse gives a human because we are a loud, warlike species who sometimes lack polite manners.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so the calming clinics calming signal clinics, for me, my experience of them is they get better and better and better because the horses teach me more and more and more. So they're really the high point of my life right now. I really enjoy giving them because, we go someplace and stand around and listen to horses all weekend.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love the way that you said that. I love the thought of that. I feel like that's what I do every day. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. One of my favorite thank you cards from a little barn in Adelaide, Australia. They gave me a thank you card that said, "Thank you for traveling 8,000 miles to stand around and breathe." And, it's like, everybody understands the concept that less is more. Mm-hmm. But nobody actually knows what less is, apparently.
Right.
Everybody believes that they're patient, but maybe not so much. And so I feel like it's part of my job, to demonstrate what that looks like.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's fantastic. So when we're talking about these signals that the horse gives to us humans, what do those signals look like? What are we actually looking at or looking for?
For instance, I'm going to give you an example of one that I think we've all seen. Foals have a particular champing movement that they do with their mouths. It's not like anything else. Mm-hmm. So they're standing next to their moms, and another horse walks by, and the little foal champs.
Yes.
And then the other horse walks on by. And that's the foal saying, "I'm no threat to you,
Mm-hmm.
Peace,
peace, right,
baby." And so things as common as that. So calming signals. This is a new term, but it's things we're incredibly familiar with. So that's one that everybody has seen, and I think because it goes on between horses and horses, it's understandable. Another calming signal is for a horse to look away. And so you'll see this happen a lot if you walk up with a halter. Perhaps the horse will look away. And I think some of us have been taught then that the horse is being disrespectful.
Right.
Or that the horse, is bored or, something. Mm-hmm. It's this crazy thing. He just looked away. If you take a breath, he'll bring his head back. Mm-hmm. Looking away is just his way of saying, a little slower, I just need a moment.
Right. Hang on, let me have a moment. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you allow him that moment and allow him to volunteer to get his halter on, it makes a huge difference to a horse. I used to not know that. I think it's one of the biggest things I've learned giving this clinic. When I made my presentation, I used the example of haltering horses, so I have a bunch of videos in my presentation of different horses being haltered and what they have to say. And, of course, it's not about haltering. It's about what they have to say. Mm-hmm. It's really fascinating. They're all individuals. It's exactly what you said earlier. The reason I have come to believe that it's so important is what I hear from people later. I've done this at therapeutic riding programs and at private barns and, all kinds of different places and all kinds of different areas. And, I think it boils down to confidence, that horses get overhandled, especially their heads, and that they learn aversion to one degree or another mm-hmm. of learned helplessness. And if you begin to give them choices, the world changes.
Yeah. Yeah, that learned helplessness and that aversion, that's very interesting. I often find myself referring to the horse's personal philosophy about us and the things we ask of him. And I'm kind of, as I'm listening to this, I feel like we're thinking about the same things or similar things in those moments.
What would you call a horse's personal philosophy?
Well, I had, for instance, I was working with a student today. We were filming an in-hand course, and one of the big pieces that we work toward is an extension and a softening of the horse's top line. And she was asking, my student was asking her horse to soften through the body and extend the top line just through a little contact with the noseband of the halter. So it's not in a pushing way downward of the head or pulling forward. It's a soft, simple invitation. And the mare's philosophy to that initial contact was to brace. And we waited for no less than 30 minutes with the contact, exactly the same, until the release came through. And you talked earlier about softness and patience. I tell riders there's 4 big keys, and that's slower, softer, wait, and breathe. And it was really interesting to watch the human go through this process, because we wanted to do a little more. We wanted to add a little more. We wanted to hurry it up a little bit. We wanted to get it done.
Escalate that cue, baby.
Yeah, exactly. The escalation of the cue, right? If they don't get the question right, we add a little more pressure, which in essence then we're changing the question just because they got the answer wrong, I think. So...
And I think that when we escalate the pressure, what we actually end up training them is to not think.
Yes.
In other words, I think the horse is thinking about what it is.
Yes.
But then we up the cue, and what they learn is don't think. So,
yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And it was interesting because this student, she does present herself in a very soft way, just maybe not soft enough for this particular horse. And she mentioned that when she rides her, she spends the first 10 or 15 minutes in a really braced frame, and then she begins to soften, and it doesn't take anything for her to go back to braced. And it was pretty evident in the way that she would change her posture when a contact, even with a hand on the halter, was taken. The upper neck would contract, the top line muscles coming into a slight contraction. And it was slight. It wasn't a lot. It was very slight, so I give her that. But that contraction was there, And I think of that as the horse's philosophy, right? They learn, contact, I need to brace to prepare for that contact. Or similar to what you're saying about the horse turning the head away. I need another minute. Give me a minute here to deal with this.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and that mare has an entire history of everything.
Yes.
Everything that's ever happened to her.
Yes.
And, I kind of think they live all moments in time at the same time, meaning, you never get to start with a clean slate with a horse. Never.
Right.
Even babies have, herd experiences, and it's all right there.
Right. And well, because they've got a whole other world that's outside of us.
Well, yeah, and I think sometimes depending on, our habit, and it's not, I don't even think it's a philosophy with us, I think it's an instinct. We escalate. It's what we do.
Yes.
And half the time we're not even aware that we do it. But I think for some horses, you have to prove to them that you're not going to do whatever it is their philosophy of what comes next is. And, sometimes that takes time. Sometimes horses let go of it, in a minute.
Yes.
And sometimes not.
Right. Absolutely. And it can be amazing sometimes, the large aversions or the flamboyant aversions that I see that horses offer, that in moments they'll let go of them. Or like with this mare today, very mild aversion that, boy, she took a long time to let go of.
So what I would say about that, and I'm not there, so I can't say anything. One of the reasons to learn calming signals is that, I don't think anybody has a hard time understanding what's going on when that chestnut mare pins her ears so hard to her neck that she leaves divots in the hair. Right. But boy, it would be good if we could have some conversation before that.
Yes.
And, reactive horses, in a sense, are a little easier to work with because it's right there.
Yes, it's much more clear.
For really stoic, quiet horses, we have to learn to read really, really tiny, tiny signs because that's how they communicate. And, when I listen to you talk about this mare that you worked with today, that's what I think. I think that she was expressing very, very tiny things in the language of calming signals. There was a moment where maybe she blinked her eye differently. And in that instance, I would exhale because that would be, a way of telling her that was a good thing. Some horses like verbal, some don't. But, for these, what people always say about stoic horses is that they hold a grudge or that they're fine. They're just perfect. They're push-button horses. He just came apart for no reason.
Yeah,
horses,
right.
Yeah, they don't come apart for no reason. You just haven't been listening.
Right.
And, one of the reasons to, really kind of get more involved with what horses are telling us with their bodies is just exactly that, mares like her, she's that kind of horse that I wouldn't think haltering differently would make a difference. And there's a leading exercise that I teach in my calming signals clinics. And I teach it because it's really fun for horses and hard for people. And we learn a lot from it. And again, in hindsight, I keep hearing of horses whose fundamental behaviors seem to switch by haltering them differently. And that seems crazy to me. But, I hear it enough now. I certainly see it in my horses here and the horses I work with, locally. It's that thing. I think as we try to understand horses, there are some things that are very similar between humans and horses. And then there are other things that mean the exact opposite. And it can be hard sometimes to figure out which is which. For whatever reason, that mare is holding her own best counsel.
Yes.
And she has, I don't think it's brand new, probably. Did you think it was brand new?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And this is a horse I've seen previously. I worked with this gal and her horse at one point before, and we worked very much the entire time then also on releasing and relaxing the top line. This is definitely something that has been layered in, and we're working to layer it out. The same, because I don't think you can, with one of those things that's been layered in over time, I don't think you can just snap your fingers, and I could be wrong, maybe I'll find a horse that's possible with, but I think that would be the rare case, that you can just, wave your magic wand and all that resistance or all that holding best counsel, I like how you said that, just goes away.
Again, I do some work in the rescue world, and it is a bittersweet thing to rescue a horse, and I think rescue horses tug on our heartstrings. And some horses go to rescue just out of neglect. No harm, no foul, they're fine. There's, no issues.
Right.
Some of them, come with a lot of baggage, and I think we are wrong to think that we can heal those horses. They can heal themselves over time, but we certainly can't heal them. And when I first started riding, somebody at my barn said, as an adult riding after I left home, and so I bring this, unstarted 3-year-old to a boarding barn, and I'm listening to a barn conversation, and the woman speaking says that it's like having a bank account, that a horse has a bank account of all of their experiences, and then the rider has that same bank account. And so what's great about it is, when you're not quite okay, your horse can take something out of his account and offer to help you, and vice versa. And it just sounded, romantic to me.
Yes.
Right up until it dawned on me that I had no bank account, and neither did my horse.
Well, that's because we own horses, and that's just the way it goes. When you own horses, you have no real bank account anyway.
Well, of any kind.
Right.
Of any kind at all. And, I think that horses come with this baggage, and it's like a bank account of whatever experience they've had, but it's probably not good. And we want to think that we could just start a new bank account. Well, first off, we want to think we could just close down the bad account, and we can't.
Right.
Ever. Those memories will be there forever. We cannot change them.
Right.
We can try to build up a new bank account, but it might take 5 times as much. It might take whatever. And I think that that's what you're talking about with this mare. The 3 of you are working together to make positive deposits in that mare's bank account, and she's the one who gets to decide when it's enough.
Yes, and just like a bank account that's gone backwards, sometimes it takes a long time to build it up out of the negative, right?
Yeah, and I always say this about training. I think we get to decide what we're going to do, but the horse gets to decide when. Sometimes that's a really exciting concept, and sometimes it's a pretty depressing concept. But she's going to decide when she feels that she can relax around us, and I'm just going to keep breathing until she feels like she can do it.
Yes.
And the flip side of this, for everybody who's got young horses and for everybody whose horses don't have any issues, what should be really clear is that bad experiences last forever. So, I always ask people in my clinics, did they have a bad experience in their childhood? Well, of course, everybody has, and they remember it. Sometimes I ask if there was a bully, and they always know the bully's name, always.
Yes.
So these are people who are maybe 50, 60 years old who remember the name of a kid in grade school who was a bully.
Right.
That's why, and horses remember the exact same way. Mm-hmm. It's like, first, do no harm. If you are a dominating rider, understand that you are depositing in a bank account that you do not want to have become the dominant conversation between the two of you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, that makes a lot of sense, and you're so right, because it just as people have it, horses have it, and it goes from the time they were born, you know.
Yeah.
And it could be something that had nothing to do with people in that moment. It could be, you know, a moment in the paddock where they felt claustrophobic, they felt squished between two other horses or something like that, that ends up causing something that comes back in a riding situation.
Absolutely. And that's why, you know, humans love to take things personally.
We sure
but
do.
It's why we can't take it personally.
Yes.
You know, people love to tell the horror story of what they think happened. And, you know, with all of the horses that have come through my barn, it really doesn't matter if they were abused or not. It matters if they think they were. And it doesn't matter who the culprit was. It might have been, you know, maybe a boss mare that was a little aggressive in her approach, you know, that just created you know, just kind of an atmosphere that was frightening.
Yes.
All the time. And so, again, it's a loss of, I could call it a loss of confidence. Maybe they never had confidence. But confidence is about the only thing a horse needs to learn, first, foremost, and always. And so, you know, this thing of giving them a choice, it's really inspiring. So I got to take a picture in my arena with a horse and rider I was working with yesterday. And he's a young horse that's boarded here. She's new with him. He came last fall. And he's a percher on Thoroughbred Cross. He's huge. And he's tiny. I think you know what I mean.
Ah, yes.
He furrows his brow. He's over 17 hands. He furrows his brow, and he's tiny. And so we're doing this exercise where we lead from behind. So it's kind of like ground driving with one line.
Okay.
That's an oversimplification, but it's the horse's choice. The horse goes first. The horse takes us for a walk. And I live on a dirt road, and the road grader came down. And I got to take a photograph of this young horse who's learning about confidence from leading from behind as he marched with his ears up towards the road grader while, you know, the woman handling him followed. And, you know, it was just such a proud moment. He was afraid of his own shadow.
Yeah,
when
what
he
a
came.
feat. What a feat.
Yeah, and, you know, my mentor taught me that curiosity is a sign of courage in a horse. And he's getting really brave, and it's just so much fun to watch.
That's great. Seeing that process carry out and that confidence develop is such an awesome experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't make it happen, but you can let it happen.
Right. You can egg it on.
Set it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can egg it on. And that's what I want to do. I want to egg it on. I want to be, you know, with my breath cheering, with my body supporting, you know, from a standpoint of standing, you know, with both my feet on the ground and breathing and, you know, being there at a distance. I want him to do it his own self.
Yes. Yes. I found we can't rush confidence, we can't rush understanding, and we can't rush relaxation, but we can help them develop.
Relax, damn it.
Yeah, right? Right? Relax. I am relaxed. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, that's like, you know, what you were saying about Ray Hunt, and certainly what I think and what dressage masters, I think of Ray Hunt as a dressage master. I doubt he'd be really flattered by that. But, you know, it is always about getting it in our own selves first. Yes. And to really have our own personal confidence at a level where where we can stand back and not do it for the horse. That's just huge for us.
Yes, that is so true. That is so true. So, and hearing you talk about the horses in this way, and I'm absolutely loving it because I feel like we're on the same page here. It's bringing up to mind a quote from a friend of mine. I don't know if you know Tom Curtin, but I overheard him say at a clinic once, and I think you probably might like this quote, and that's why I'm inspired to share it with you. He was saying to a group of students, he said, it doesn't matter what I think of your horsemanship. It doesn't even really matter what you think of your horsemanship, but what matters is how your horse feels about himself when he's with you.
Amen.
Right?
Amen. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Nuno Alvera said the only judge of a rider should be the horse.
Exactly.
And, and I feel like I've heard it in a million different ways, but that's it exactly. And, that's always what we, sorry to drag this back to the whole parable for life thing.
No, I think it's appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. We want to hang with people who make us feel good about who we are. I feel like it's part of my job as a clinician to get people inspired about their horse. And some of it is going to clinics where I've seen that not happen, or I've had it not happen.
Sure.
And that doesn't mean, just say sweet things all day long, but nobody who has horses is remotely passive about it. It's a passion for all of us. Mm-hmm. And I think as a trainer and clinician, it's my job to see the best and magnify that in both horses and riders. And for the challenging horses like the mare today, I think it takes, it looks different sometimes.
Yes, that's very true. It looks different. It's a similar idea that takes many different forms. Yeah. So you mentioned earlier a comment about a horse holding a grudge. And I hear so many people talk about, this horse is stubborn. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on a horse being stubborn or a horse holding a grudge?
Well, you know who they say is stubborn? Donkeys.
Donkeys, yeah.
Yeah, donkeys aren't stubborn. They think we're rude.
Mm. Yes, I would buy that, absolutely.
We're loud and fast. There is a horse that comes to my mind in my training experience when I think of what I mean by holding a grudge. And, just a fabulously talented, beautiful horse. And what you see when you're standing on the ground next to her, to make a long story short, what you see standing on the ground next to her is that her flank looks like a six-pack, that you can see every muscle in her torso tense.
Yeah.
And she thinks something bad is going to happen, and she had better brace her ribs for it. She is holding her breath. She's rock hard. Mm-hmm. And it goes without saying her top line, too.
Sure.
But, she is holding a grudge that everything against humans. And I don't need to know how she got the grudge, but I need to work with her until she gives it up.
Yes, to help her let down. Sure.
Yeah, and so, I guess I could say she was abused, but I would rather say she's holding a grudge, and it doesn't mean that the grudge isn't well-founded.
Right.
She has a bad opinion of humans. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to, I have no reason to think she didn't come by the grudge honestly.
Yes.
I don't think she's being stubborn in that traditional definition of distracted or not wanting to work with me or disrespectful. I think what she's saying is, you and your kind, I can't trust you.
Yeah. So when you're saying she's holding a grudge, that would be kind of the words I think that I would use for that was that she'd be taking it personal.
Yeah.
Which is the same thing in different words. But yeah.
Well, and and we take it personal. I come from a family that holds grudges, and so the terminology it means a lot of different things to me in life. I don't think it's necessarily. I'm not going to call it bad.
Sure.
Because she's protecting herself doing it.
Yes. Ray would refer to that as self-preservation. Yes.
Yeah. And so what she has learned is I better not trust. I'm not okay here. I better not trust this. I better stay hollow. And just because I relaxed today, it does not mean anything. It's like she is afraid to show her vulnerable side. Yeah. And, that's fair.
It sounds like that bank account is in a pretty large deficit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so, I will say I'll say it sarcastically. Training horses is really easy. It's just an accumulation of good experiences.
Yeah.
And I mean, truly, I think that is it. The problem is it's up to us to make it a good experience.
Yeah, to create those experiences, sure.
Yeah. And it can be challenging enough with a young horse who comes with his particular chemistry of everything. And then, the thing we haven't talked about is the horse sound. And I hate having this conversation because I don't think many horses are sound, but I also don't think we can figure out what's unsound about them as well as we would like to.
Right.
And so calming signals frequently tell us that they're in pain. It's huge for that. So, for instance, what's a good example of this? Well, this one's a personal one. I got a young horse. I bought him when he was 2 months old. We did everything right. We waited to wean him. We did everything just right. He was 45 minutes away. I hauled the horse in a trailer to go get him. He showed up here. He had a great day. And I called the breeder that night, and I said, we got home safe and sound. He's great. And she said, good, I'm glad, I won't worry. And I said, you never told me he was food aggressive. And she said to me, well, that's funny. He wasn't that way here. And so I trained him to not be food aggressive. I did it kindly, but I trained him to not be food aggressive. And what he was telling me was that he got an ulcer. In the vast majority of horses that we haul to a new environment. And
sure.
And so, again, a calming signal is how they can tell us that they're in pain. But if we only hear it as a behavioral issue that needs to be corrected, well, I'm going to bet that experience happened to the mare you're talking about at some point where she said, this hurts. And the answer she got back was, you will do what I say, or something.
It went unheard.
But she associates then pain with humans.
So how would we recognize a horse giving these calming signals for pain? What would that look like?
There are a bunch of pretty fascinating articles about it, but this would be my short version because I can't show you pictures right now.
Okay.
You'll see tense lines around their eyes.
Yes.
Maybe their nostrils, and you'll see a difference in their nostrils. Their mouth will be tense. Sometimes they'll gesture to where they're uncomfortable. Sometimes they'll just shut down. So a lot of times when a horse is in pain, their eyes will go blank and they'll shut down. In other words, it might look to us like they're ignoring us.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the problem with calming signals and talking about calming signals. Can you tell me the definition of the word blue?
Gotcha. Yes.
When is later?
Oh, when is later? That's a good one. When is later?
Yeah, or any of the other things your daughter asked you when she was younger.
Yes. How far is up?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so if we take a tiny calming signal out of context, it could mean anything.
Yes.
We always have to continue the conversation and get an overall sense of what's going on. And then on top of that, as you know, this is where it gets really fun. Of course, horses are individuals. Mm-hmm. So some horses have very expressive ears, but their nose might be pretty quiet. Sometimes they'll be very expressive with their mouths, and their ears will say less. Sometimes it's all about their eyes. And so it's just like you and I have, through this conversation, passed ideas back and forth to try and decide, you know, what we're each saying, and to find, you know, some connection between the things we're saying. It's the exact same way, speaking, you know, listening and responding to horses' calming signals. We have to take them in context with everything. Yeah,
yeah. So it's dynamic, contextual, and individual all at the same time.
Yeah, other than that, it's really easy.
Yeah, it's just that easy. Yeah, just nothing more, not much more to it.
Well, you know, the strange thing is, if you stand around and listen, they'll keep talking. You know, it does get clearer. You know, it's like learning to lengthen and shorten your reins. You get better at it, and it's easier.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, it feels like a ball of twine.
Sure.
And,
well, it's learning a new language.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's the language they speak, and you know, for as much success and happiness as I had with horses before I started thinking in these terms, I had nothing to complain about. But our relationships have gotten so much more dimensional from here. And I am that person, you know. I don't think horses are mystical creatures sent here to heal us. I think if we learn something from them, it's our own good luck.
Yeah.
I don't want them to be subservient to me. I don't want them to be Zen masters for me. I kind of like them just the way they are. I want to understand them as horses rather than making them into something, you know, that suits a dialogue I want to have. I would rather listen to their dialogue because I got to tell you, it's pretty fascinating.
Yes. That's
and
awesome.
And you know, I think that for those of us who have that experience of having a horse for decades, by the time they get old, we tend to forget how fractious they were as young horses. I think it is always the journey that we take long term. It can be a horse that you have owned for a long time, or it could be, you know, I think this when I see people doing long treks on their horses. I think by the end of the trek, they know a lot more about their horse than they did when they started.
Yes.
And the same thing is true riding up the levels of dressage. It is a journey up those levels, and you will forge a relationship or you won't be able to proceed.
Right.
And, you know, it's not going to be whatever it is you thought it was. And then at the end, you know, we know each other so well that we just beat with the same heart, but it never starts that way. You know, I think understanding calming signals makes that process a little easier. It doesn't feel as random or accidental.
Right. Well, it sounds like it gives us a better understanding of the messages coming across.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which are frequently not what we want to hear.
Sure.
You know, that has to be okay.
Sure, yeah.
You know, I always say, you know, if you take a breath and you're trying to decide what your horse is, you know, trying to say to you, and the message you get is that they would like a blue velvet pad, that's you. That's not your horse. But if you take a nice breath and the message you get is, your hands suck. Well,
that's probably the horse.
I think you probably should listen to that. Yeah, that might be true. And the reason it matters is one day the message is going to come loud and clear. Your horse is going to show you grace at some time that you don't expect it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be a direct result of this.
Right.
And, you know, I mean, it doesn't start that way on day one. It has to grow to that. And if you can be speaking the same language along the way, you know, it's a real asset. If you're working with a troubled horse, it's a real asset to at least understand. You'll be able to see that they're thinking about it. And boy, whenever I can see that a horse is reasoning something out, that's huge for me. I really want to reward that. I want a horse that thinks.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So how do we help riders to recognize these things? How do we help riders to see when the horse is trying or when the horse is thinking, or like you're talking about these calming signals? How do we help the riders to recognize those? And even more so, when they're on their back.
Well, that's what's fun about the Calming Signals Clinic, because we spend the first day is usually on the ground, and then the second day is on their back.
Okay.
Through this lens, through this new Calming Signals lens, where we're just looking at behaviors that we've all seen forever, but actually giving them, you know, the weight they deserve. Well, geez, a lot of conversations go on at the mounting block, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes,
Starts
yes.
right there.
Or 10 steps away.
Yeah. If where calming signals come into play, for instance, in this dressage rhymes with massage, I want to be able to see calming signals in my horse telling me that the horse is feeling better. So some calming signals, it's not a perfect name. It's just an intriguing name, calming signals.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Some signals are kind of accelerating in energy. Some are decelerating in energy. And so there are, before your horse's poll gets tense, there are a series of things that happen. And then before your horse's poll relaxes, there are a series of things that happen. And so I'm going to take those all into account. And the one that might drive you nuts the most, it's a common calming signal for a horse to drop their nose down and rub their nose on their front leg.
Yes.
Calming. You've seen it a million times.
Absolutely.
That's a release.
Yes.
So this next stretch, if I were a natural horseman, I think I would call that a submissive position, or, you know, a positive passive position. Mm-hmm. As a dressage instructor, I'm going to say anytime my horse's poll is lower than his withers, he's stretching his lumbar spine, and that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. I think as a rider, there were times I was told to jerk his head up and get to work.
Absolutely, yes. I see that happen so many times. Riders are told, don't let that happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so he's saying, I need a minute. Yep. I just need a breath. Just let me stretch. And truly, if you leave them alone, it's crazy. They pick up their head and do exactly what you asked them to do.
Yep.
But we get into thinking it's disrespectful or some such, or just being told. Mm-hmm. And, if a horse does that with me, I'm going to give him a minute.
Yep.
That doesn't mean, that in the middle of a dressage test, he's going to stop and scratch his nose.
Right.
But if I acknowledge to him that I hear him and that I will give him a minute, well, then he's going to give me a minute sometime down the road.
There you go. Working the balance of both bank accounts.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the leader, that means you're the one that does it first, that you create a peace, an area of calm that is an attractive place, that your horse works for you because he wants to, because he volunteers. And if everything we do is a correction, how'd that work? This is one of the things that people and horses are similar at. We don't like to be constantly corrected.
Well, damn it, Anna, I've got a show to go to, and he's just got to do it right.
I know. How nice for you.
Oh, what a great response.
Have a nice day. Well, and
First world problems, right?
Well, and, this is the challenge being a trainer, is that we are expected to spit out a finished trained horse.
Yeah.
And, that's not who horses are. Mm-hmm. That's not a realistic expectation.
Right.
It just doesn't work that way. I like to be in the training situation that you described today. That, the three of you are going to work on this thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I see as successful.
Yes.
And, about what we can expect. But it will be at her time.
Right, on her time, absolutely. Because we can't rush understanding, relaxation, or confidence, but we can help them develop. We can egg them on.
Yeah, exactly. And, again, that's how you turn out that midlife horse that everybody raves about. But you can't punish a horse to get to that place. I just see it so much. Don't you think that confidence is just the most important question?
Confidence and relaxation, and I think they do come hand in hand for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think one is...
They're sisters, they're twins. Yeah. Because you don't find one without the other, really.
Exactly, I agree.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I feel like we could share stories forever about these things, and this is awesome. I'm so glad that you agreed to come on this with me. As we chatted before doing this, there's very few people that I talk to now on these podcasts that I haven't met, and I haven't met you before, and we really didn't know much about each other at all before we started this. And I kind of have the feeling that we could put in a really good effort for the longest podcast I've ever done.
Yeah, and I don't think a slumber party is out of the question, except that at a certain point, I really actually do have to go out and feed horses.
Right, yes, absolutely. Well, and I've got a nice drive to Rhode Island tomorrow morning, so absolutely. I'm in the same boat that way. I'm in the same boat. So I hope you don't mind, but is it all right with you if we take a couple questions that have come in through our listeners live?
Absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. So let me see what we have here. Kara has asked, what town do you happen to be in currently? I'm not sure if she's asking you that question or me that question, because a lot of our listeners know that I'm pretty much in a different town, if not every day, every 2 to 3 days. So what town are you in currently, Anna?
I am in Peyton, Colorado, on the flat, windy, treeless prairie.
And is that where you live?
This is where I live.
Okay, Peyton, Colorado.
I travel less than you do. But,
yes.
Yeah, but I travel a lot.
Whereabout is Peyton, Colorado?
It's east of Colorado Springs.
Gotcha.
So it's, if I look out the window right in front of my desk where I'm sitting, I see my pond, and I see a little hillside, and then I see Pikes Peak in the distance.
Ah, nice. Nice.
I love my little farm.
Yes, that sounds beautiful. That's a lovely area. Years ago, I drove through there. Flew into Colorado Springs, I believe, and drove all around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are you at?
I'm currently in a little town. This hotel is in Morgantown, Pennsylvania, next to the town called Honeybrook. I've been in Honeybrook for the last couple days filming an online in-hand course, actually.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and tomorrow I'll be, I don't know, somewhere in Rhode Island. Oh, let's see. What else have we got here? You've got a lot of fans out there, Anna. We've got lots of comments on here about following you and loving you and reading your books, and this is fantastic. Here's a really...
I'm really lucky. I have, I'm not just saying this. In the horse world, some of us manage to kind of, be backstabbers. And Facebook can be kind of a nasty place. But I cannot say enough about the people who comment and read my blog and post statements of such support for each other and share experiences in such a positive way. And, I hate to sound, self-serving or something, but it's me that loves them. They have created my blog to be this really positive, nice place to be. So when they're saying, oh, here's what I want to say. You know how sometimes people will describe their horse to you, but what they're really describing is who they are? Have you ever had that experience as a trainer?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, what these guys are saying about my blog is actually what's true about them. They're wonderful people.
That's fantastic. We must share the same fans then, because I always say that the folks in my community are the best ones in the horse industry. So I'm thinking that they're playing in two sandboxes here. They must be the same people that are coming over and visiting you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I believe it.
They're the best.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. So Jess has the question, as an author, who are your favorite authors to read? That's a great question.
Well, it is. I have to say, and it surprises me to say this, growing up, over the years, I love literature. I like English literature, and there's some South American authors that I really like. I can tell you, I've taken to really enjoying memoir. I really love people telling the stories of their own lives and their own experiences. And so, it's like asking me what my favorite movie is or what my favorite book is.
Yes.
But what I can say is I love books that resonate with me personally. I love a story that I feel like I can get into and understand and relate to. Recently, comparatively, I've started writing poetry, and I write poetry because I don't like poetry. And I'm redefining that for myself, and now there are some poets that I really enjoy reading. So I guess I'm going to say I like the next thing I read that isn't something I usually read.
Oh, nice.
And,
that's great.
How much reading do you get done, Patrick?
I've actually found a way to get way more reading done in the last couple months than I've done in several years. I've been on the road full-time, about 340 to 345 days of the year for the last 5 years now.
You're killing me.
And I'm loving it.
Hard.
I am such a gypsy at heart. If I'm home for more than 2 days, I start to get itchy. So it fits me perfectly. But I've found also living on the road so much, I have to really work hard to keep fit and to keep flexible and things like that. So I've found in most of the hotels I'm at, they have a fitness center. They have a gym. So I'll spend anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour every day on a treadmill reading a book. That's how I catch up on my reading list, actually.
That's smart.
Yeah, well, I think it is. I don't know. I mean, it's my desire to multitask is what it is.
Well, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I listen to some books on tape.
Yes.
The idea of, and you've answered my question perfectly, the idea of having time to sit down and read is not available to me.
Yes.
I read before I fall asleep at night. That's usually a page, maybe a page and a half.
Yeah, sure. No, I get that. Yep. Awesome. So let's see. Looking through here. Okay, so Cindy wants to know, can you explain the leading from behind exercise again?
I will explain it as best I can.
Yeah, I feel like that's something we have to see to comprehend a little better.
Yeah, I mean, here's the short version. You stand at his drive line where the girth is, or farther back. You stand out of his space, no closer to his head than you would be if you were riding. He does it. He takes you for a walk. If you ask him to walk, he takes the first step, not you. And you don't correct his head. You just say yes. It is an exercise in not cueing. It's an exercise in allowing your horse the autonomy to do what he wants to do. And it's as anyone who has been to any of my clinics will tell you, it is really hard. And it's that notion that they get to be curious. It's a confidence builder for them.
Now, do you put any limits on that?
Yeah, sure. But not the ones you'd expect.
Okay.
If it is, here's something we do with horses that I don't think is fair. I think that there's a time in the spring when my nose, which has been broken, can smell the grass. If I can smell the grass, well, then that's not fair. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
It's a couple of weeks every spring when the horses are just driven nuts by the smell of fresh grass, I can tell. So then I'm going to lead from behind in an arena.
Gotcha. Yep.
So I guess you'll call that a line, meaning it's not fair to think he's going to want to do anything but, graze. So that's fine. We can do that. The leading from behind is about giving him choice, which means that we have to stop grabbing and overthinking. It's much more about what we're doing than what they're doing. Again, and this is what's great about the question from her and from you. We're looking for what is the result I'm looking for? Well, it's not about you and your result. That's what I mean to say.
Nice.
It's not about you.
Nice. So he has the say.
Yeah. And, again, this young horse, they're just walking on the rail. Sometimes she'll ask him to do a circle, and then he'll do something that she'll follow. You pass the leadership as if you were partners back and forth.
Okay.
We are very result-oriented, technique-oriented.
Yes.
And what any of my clients ever say to me, every year I say, what are your goals for the year? Or what should we work on this year? And every year they all say the exact same thing. I want a better relationship with my horse. Now, I would like it if they would say, I'd like a better canter transition.
Right. That'd be so much easier, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but no, they would rather have the universe. And
Right.
so because they want the universe, then if it's about relationship, that's a different goal.
Yes.
And, I'm going to say the dreaded word trust, because I think the biggest problem humans have with horses is the lack of trust. And it is not that we don't trust that we'll get hurt or something like that. It's not that trust. We don't trust that they're actually intelligent, and they are. And so I want to teach people to trust the intelligence of their horses.
That's a very interesting concept. That's very interesting.
Yeah, that silence scared me just a little bit.
Oh, goodness, no. No, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. And I'm thinking in my head, because I've worked with some horses, several horses, that have been kept in not so horsey situations for most, if not all, of their lives. Stall-bound, very minimal turnout, little, if any, socialization, things like that. Those are horses that often I think I would refer to as poor decision makers. Basically because they've had a learning challenge or an experience challenge. So what about those horses?
Well, I would call them abused. I wouldn't call them poor decision makers.
And I would agree with you 1,000% on that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, they
situational
are
abuse, environmental abuse.
They are in this position through no choice and with no autonomy.
Yes.
And they're in solitary confinement. We say that for the very worst criminals in our culture and horses. And it seems like the more expensive the horse, the more so sometimes. There's nothing I can do for that horse if I can't get the owner to understand that it is such an unnatural life for him that he cannot behave in a natural way.
Yes.
And so, I'm not going to look to the horse in that situation. I'm going to look to the person. So I think this is where I say one more time, I'm a horse advocate.
Yeah.
First and foremost and always. Because, I can help that horse. You bet. Mm-hmm. But first, we have to change his life. Absolutely.
The entire environment has to change. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. He's a product of all of that.
Absolutely.
And this thing, I think we are all trying to do this totally impossible task. And the impossible task is to own horses as naturally as we can.
Sure.
But none of us have 5,000 acres. None of us,
Right.
And it's not like wild horses have a great life, by the way. You
right,
know?
Exactly.
It's like, we have to find a way to communicate in their language and get a reasonable facsimile to the greatest degree that we can of a natural life for them. Mm-hmm. That has to be our goal.
I agree, yes.
And, I run into horses like that all the time,
mm-hmm. Right.
I think that there are a whole lot more, what do I want to say? I'm going to call that horse almost abused by love. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes sense to me because we know that those owners, it's not an intentional abuse. It's a desire to keep everything very sanitary, very sterile for those horses so they don't ever get hurt
and very safe. And we would rather over-own them. It's just so hard to let a horse be a horse.
Yeah.
And that's why I advocate it so much, because I swear they are so much cooler as horses than anything we manipulate them into being.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that you can't compete, and it doesn't mean that you can't win. I am not a fan of, standing in a pasture with horses or, as a routine. Although I certainly do spend a lot of time standing around with horses. I mean, I have goals, and I am the one that thinks they can love working.
Yes.
I think you can make it that way.
Sure.
It's harder. It's harder for the human to do it that way, but if we are theoretically the advanced species, we're the ones that should make the changes first.
Yes. Well, I think this all the time. We are our horse's life coach as well as his fitness coach. And we need to design a life program and a fitness program that he looks forward to, that he would rather stick to in spite of us, or if we weren't there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it'd be good if we could do that for ourselves, too.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, oh, God, in my poetry book, there is a poem entitled Life Coach.
Oh, really? Oh, man.
And it's about a goat.
Oh, I love it. I mean,
I think if we were all more goat-like, we'd do better.
Well, at the end of a long day of teaching, sometimes in the summer, I kind of smell a little goat-like, if that counts.
Well, however you can get there, Patrick, perhaps you have not invested the time that I have.
This could be.
In the goat world, you should consider it because goats are an antidote to type A behavior.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, every dressage barn should have a goat just to keep us a little based in reality. Another one of my opinions that has not caught on nationwide, I might add.
But have you seen or have you partaken yourself in the new goat yoga craze?
No, and I practice yoga.
But you haven't practiced goat yoga? You are totally missing out. So I hear.
Can I just say this one thing? Those cute videos. My yoga teacher may speak to me later about this, but she and I tell you, I give a writing lesson just like she gives a yoga lesson. So we have a lot in common. Do you notice that those are all baby goats?
Yeah.
How long do you think that would last?
Right?
My goat weighs about 120 pounds, maybe a little more. And he has pointy little hooves.
Yes.
So no.
Imagine him jumping on your back during a downward dog pose, right?
Well, and it's not like he doesn't, again, if you think you can control the way this works,
right.
Good for you. If you think you can get a goat to eat the weeds on your property, well, good for you. Keep the alfalfa locked up.
Isn't that the truth?
We can control them even a little worse than we can control horses, which is probably what I like about them.
Yeah.
They just keep me honest.
They are their own people, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, and don't particularly care about you. And, for some of us who are people pleasers and constantly apologizing and constantly on the schedule, it's just good to get dragged around by a goat every now and then.
Keeps it real.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Oh, gosh. So, Rosalind asks, are you having any classes soon?
I've got a bunch of clinics coming up, and they're all on my website.
Good.
It shockingly, and I know, Patrick, this is just going to make your eyes glaze over. I'm going to be home for an entire month. I'm really excited about it.
That's awesome. Good.
And so far this year, I've gone to New Zealand and Australia and Scotland and England and quite a few places in the U.S., including a spectacular trip to Alaska. And I'm taking this month to be here because I actually have clients here.
Oh, nice.
Nice. Yeah, they're saints. They're thrilled that I get to travel and I'm not available to them as I would like to be. So I'm going to be here for a few schooling shows for a couple of my clients because It's really important to me to do that. Mm-hmm. And then I'll head off in September to Canada and Washington State and California and Oregon, and then another big trip that's almost finalized, but not quite finalized yet.
Nice. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
so I'll be coming and going. And then, the other thing that I would say, if you're listening, my blog has in the right column every place I'm going, or if you want to, you can put me your email with where you live, and then I'll notify you when I come to your neck of the woods. I don't travel like Patrick does, but I travel a whole lot if you ask me.
Good. Are you primarily West Coast when you're traveling? Well, and I know you said New Zealand, Australia, but in the States, are you primarily West Coast?
No, I'm shocked. I'm in the next couple of months, I'm going to California, and I have never been there before.
Oh, okay.
I know, go figure. I go all over. I've never been in the Northeast, which seems to be where you travel some.
I spend quite a bit of time here in the Northeast. Yes.
Yeah. Well, trust me. If somebody up there gives me a call, I'm gonna chase you down to the hotel you're staying in.
Hey, I don't know if that's a promise or a threat, but I'm gonna make that happen.
Yeah. Either way is fine with me.
Right there we go.
Either way is fine. So yeah, I don't even have. I get to go to Washington State. Some, and I really love it up there, so that's really pleasant
nice.
to me. And this whole international part was something I never expected. And sometimes I think, how in the Old West there were outriders? They might have been ministers or school teachers or,
yes.
They would travel from town to town with the news and provide a service. The judges used to ride circuits. I feel like I do that, and I really love getting to go the distances I'm going because it's fascinating. If nothing else, it's fascinating to figure out how people manage owning their horses in such diverse climates. I do it for that. The struggle of owning a horse in New Zealand, as rich and lush as that country is a huge challenge. They can't graze all day. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
And so, I like having a large circuit. But then again, it's really, here's the simple answer. I've given you the long answer. This is the simple answer. When somebody invites me somewhere, I say yes.
I could have finished your sentence right there. I was going to say, that's right, your business plan. You say yes.
Yeah, I just say yes. And then I wind up someplace and people say, would you ever consider? And it's like, yeah, ask me.
You bet, right? Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it worked really well training horses to just say yes all the time.
There you go.
I've taken it up with people, and I'm having great response.
Good. Oh, that's fantastic. Here we've got a question from Gail. Gail says, it's a 3-word question. Help, nippy pony.
4-word answer. Leave his head alone.
Ooh.
Well, I just thought I'd answer it in like. So I'll give you a sweeter answer now.
Have you answered the question that way before? Have you been presented with it that you've said 4-word answer, or did you just come up with that on the fly? Because I'm really impressed if you did. Because I would have to probably say it in my head 3 times and then count it on my fingers before I could say it, and that was a fast reply.
Maybe I take a dare quicker than you do. And granted, it was a dare of my own. So again, I'm a horse advocate. Horses are born incredibly sensitive on their noses. This is something I have so much passion about. I'm not sure that this person asking the question hasn't set me up to say something that I always want to say. So they're born with these incredibly sensitive noses. That's how they find their mothers and nurse. And they're very, very ticklish because of such a high percentage of nerve endings there in their noses. It's how they survive. And we have a tendency to mangle horse noses. They reach out to sniff us. That's all they're doing. They just want to smell. And we grab their nose and think that they're making some sort of connection with us. They're not. But we tend to overstimulate their nose. Sometimes nippiness comes from that. Sometimes nippiness comes from treats. And, I make people mad when I say this, but I don't use treats. I want to be the treat. I want me to be the treat.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to stimulate his face, which, by the way, we tend to manhandle more than we're aware of anyway.
Right.
So I don't actually touch horses on their noses. I'll touch them on their cheek. Usually I touch them on their bodies. But if a horse is aggressive with his nose, it could be something like that. And then the other thing I'll say is they'll bite at you if you're standing too close and they want a little space. They'll bite at you if they've given you 50 or 60 calming signals that you haven't listened to. They'll up the volume and nip at you. Sometimes they bite when they're in pain. My answer, I will never know in a brief period of time which of those things this horse is responding to. But what I'm going to do is take him at his word and get out of his face.
Okay.
And then I'll continue the conversation.
Okay. And Gail's actually just put in a confirming message here that he's a sneak nipper, and it's not necessarily when she's touching his head. And that's bringing to mind, even for me, some of those moments when, and I don't know, because I don't know if I know Gail or not, because I'm terrible with names, unfortunately. That's part of my traveling so much. I meet, probably 200, 300 new people every month. So I hate it. I admit to being terrible with names. Right, yeah, exactly. So Gail, if we have met, and I do know you, I apologize, but I don't know you by your full name on Facebook at least. But the sneak nipping, I see that sometimes with horses when people are tacking up, that I find to often be related to ulcers.
Yep, exactly.
Or chiropractic issues or other muscular tension issues. And then maybe I'd be curious to get your thoughts. What I tend to find is that the two main places I find horses holding most of their tension is in their jaw and their lumbar spine.
I'm also going to say there are pressure points for ulcers under the girth. So girthing, that's like a huge. I would have to add that to the list. I'm going to think it's pain first of some sort. Second, I'm going to say if he is sneaking up and biting, it is not a natural behavior. If it is a behavior and not a pain response, and I'm going to say 95% of me thinks it's pain when you put it that way and say it's not about treats. I'm really going to lean towards pain. I'm going to become aware of what my body is doing when he nips. You say he comes out of nowhere. I want you to, get a little, do a little equine CSI work and really figure out when he does it and when he doesn't do it. And it's going to take time, but trace it down.
Kind of keeping a mental log of when it happens and what's going on in that situation.
Yeah, and what your body is doing, where you are in his space or out of his space, whether you're facing him or all of those things. I'm going to take all of those things into consideration. And the one thing I'm going to say for sure is that there's going to be no disciplining him out of this, because I think he is expressing something that is that
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I think I do. Yeah.
This isn't bad ground manners. This is, there's a little more energy to it, and so that would tell me that there's probably something going on.
Something underlying, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so, gosh, and again, I know we could keep going forever, and we have just gone over our 2-hour mark. So we're nearing into the longer of our, we've entered into the realm of our longer podcasts. I love it. This is so much fun. And before I abuse your time too much, because I certainly want to be respectful of that, I think I'd love to get into some of our wrap-up questions, if you don't mind.
Perfect.
Awesome. Cool. So if there was one specific thing that you could recommend that riders focus on as a primary means of improving their horsemanship or their dressage, however you want to think of it, what would that be?
Oh, God, that one is so easy. Breathing. It's just the only thing that matters.
Breathing. Good. It's the hardest thing for us to do next to thinking, but it is pretty darn important.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, how you relax a horse's top line is with your breath.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, we don't think it's going to work, so we don't commit ourselves to it.
Right.
But I swear, if I was going to get if I was going to create a training aid that everybody who liked me would buy and thereby make me rich, that's what it would be, breath.
Yes.
It's the only thing that always works.
There you go. Well, and it's so connected to our physiology that when we're riding, influences hugely the horse's physiology, so it makes perfect sense.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. If you could ride with anyone, past or present, who would it be and why?
Ride with them.
Yeah, ride with them. Whether it's in a lesson or just ride alongside them for the day.
Yeah, I'd ride with Nuno Olvera. And if it was a conversation, I'd say somebody else. I want to walk on a horse next to him walking on a horse.
So now, okay, you've piqued my interest. I'll snag at that bait. If it's a conversation with anyone, who would it be and why?
Xenophon. It would be Xenophon in a hot moment because my all-time favorite quote is a Xenophon quote that goes something like, "What a horse does under compulsion is done without understanding, and there's no beauty in it any more than if one should whip or spur a dancer." Yes. I want to have a conversation with him about positive training.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's very intriguing. I love that. What is your present personal definition of, I'm going to give you horsemanship or dressage, whichever you would prefer. Your present personal definition.
Safety. And it's not what you're thinking. When I think of horsemanship or riding or dressage or leadership or partnership or whatever word you want to use, I think what horses are looking to me for is safety. Their safety.
Yeah.
So that's what I think good leadership is providing safety.
Nice. And if they feel that they have that, they have the confidence, they get the relaxation, and then the understanding comes through.
Yeah, and then we're often.
Yes.
Then we're doing tempi changes. Then the world's a happy place. That's
fantastic. What book are you currently reading, or what was the last book that you read?
I can't remember the name of the very last book I read, but a couple of books ago I read H is for Hawk, Hawk. It was a popular book a couple of years ago, an English author whose name will, of course, escape me now, too. It talks about training hawks, and I just found it fascinating. I really recommend it. H is for Hawk.
So you recommend it?
Yeah, highly.
That's very interesting. I have a friend who actually is a falconer and hunts horseback, so I'm going to have to ask him if he's got that and see if I can snag it and borrow it.
Oh, and he would, I bet I'd be surprised if he didn't just rave about it. I bet he's read it because it's his line of expertise.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm definitely going to look that up. That's fascinating. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to steal a question from another podcaster, Tim Ferriss, that I like to listen to quite a bit. If you had a giant billboard to print any message you wanted on for the world to see it, what would the message be?
Just say yes.
I knew it. I knew it going into the question.
I have this catchy phrase that I use all the time, less correction, more direction. But, it's easier to just say yes.
I'm writing that one down. Less correction and more direction. I love that. I take notes the whole time that I do these, and sometimes I get some really awesome quotes. So I'm snagging that one. Yeah, awesome. Very cool. All right, now here's a pretty important one. How can folks find you? How can they find out what you're doing? How can they interact with you? How can they continue on with these conversations?
So, my website where everything happens is called AnnaBlakeBlog.com. And so that's how you find me online. And, I'm on Facebook with my name, Anna Blake, and I'm pretty easy to find. I'm right out there. They could check your website, I think.
They could, absolutely, and this will be available on my website very soon too, probably by tomorrow. So.
Perfect.
Fantastic. Great. All right. Now, so here's a tricky one that I didn't tell you about, that I never tell anybody about, because it's about the element of surprise. Most of the time when I do videos or when I do these audio broadcasts, we have a question of the day. And the question of the day is something that we get to ask, or I get to ask, the audience. I've been asking you questions all this time. Now the opportunity is yours to ask a question of our audience. And they get to answer it, or they have to answer it through the comment section on this post. So, question of the day, and I'm going to turn it over to you. What is our question of the day for our audience?
How can I best advocate for my horse?
Oh, I love that.
It's about them. It's not about us.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Gang, you heard it. Anna Blake, her question of the day, how can I best advocate for my horse? Give us the answer there in the comment section for this video. I'm really looking forward to reading your answers, and I have a feeling Anna's going to check back to read your answers as well. Anna, thank you so much for this. This has been so much fun.
So much fun, Patrick. We're siblings, you and I.
I think so. I think we were separated at birth somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, it's interesting. We've had several comments come in that this has been the favorite podcast for many of our listeners. And I'm going to agree. It's definitely in my top of favorite podcasts so far. I've had so much fun with this.
It has been fun.
Yes.
It has. You and I are going to meet up sometime. I know it.
I cannot wait. And I'm just going to share this with you about the question of what was the last book you read. We have my friend Krista, a student from Illinois, Wisconsin area. She just had to type in, of course she did, because Krista's kind of a smartass like that. She belongs in our sibling group, I'm just going to say that. She says, it would have been funny if your answer would have been 50 Shades of Grey.
Well, does she know I have all gray horses?
Well, she does now.
Well, and in hindsight, I think I should have mentioned one of my own books, shouldn't I?
Right? It would have been I gave you a perfect marketing opportunity there. I mean, geez.
I know. So it goes.
Oh, goodness. I love it. All right. Well, thank you again so much. I really appreciate you taking the time here for us.
Thank you, Patrick.
Absolutely. So hang on just one moment if you would. And thank you so much, gang, for tuning in for episode number 31 of Talking About Horses. I really appreciate you giving Anna and I your ear and your time. Please remember that if you've missed any of it, you can access the full broadcast through Facebook, YouTube, iTunes or by streaming directly from my website by accessing the Talking About Horses page from the Education drop-down menu. Through whatever platform you're listening, please be sure to give us a rating, a comment, a review, and a share with your friends. Your word of mouth and support is the fuel for this fire. Thank you so much again, gang.
Hey there, gang. Patrick King here. Every other week, I send out an exclusive email newsletter to help riders reach their goals with their horses. These 5-Bit Friday emails include evaluations of exercises and movements for your horse, rider psychology tips, my personal reviews of books or videos, important thoughts on equitation, anatomy insights, quotes to ponder, lots more. 5-Bit Friday is only available if you subscribe to our email list. If you're interested in receiving these exclusive emails, register today by visiting my website at pkhorsemanship.com/newsletter. Thank you in advance for signing up, and I hope you enjoy and gain lots of value from 5-Bit Friday.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Talking About Horses with Patrick King. If you enjoyed today's show, please leave a review and subscribe. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit pkhorsemanship.com. We'll catch you next time.